The subject is Teresa Wall, a 70-year-old African American female. When were you diagnosed with diabetes?
I was diagnosed with diabetes in January of 1996.
What symptoms of diabetes did you experience, and how were you diagnosed?
I began experiencing what I believed to be a yeast infection in my pelvic area, and I was at that time living in St. Louis, Missouri. The irritation from the yeast, what I thought was a yeast infection, continued to worsen till I was unable to wear underwear. And so after I visited the hospital, a doctor in St. Louis, he told me that I had a STD, a sexually transmitted disease, and I was being treated for a STD until I moved to Texas in January of 1996, and I visited a physician in Dallas, Texas, who was treating me for a yeast infection for several months before realizing that the symptoms that I was experiencing were being caused by elevated blood sugar levels, which he informed me was diabetes, type 2 diabetes.
What kinds of foods were you eating before you were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes?
I have always had an issue with a high carb diet and a diet that was not high in vegetables, green leafy vegetables, and my diet consisted mostly of meat and carbohydrates, proteins and carbohydrates.
Do your family members have a history with diabetes?
No, I don't have, I take that back. My dad was diagnosed with diabetes, and he lived to be 94 years old. He died a couple of years ago, and I found out, maybe 15 years ago that he was a diabetic. And I thought that his diabetes was a result of the fact that he ate a lot of sugar. He loved candy. He used to eat these little orange slices and little green gummy pepper mint slices. And I always thought that diabetes had something to do with eating a lot of candy and sugar, And I've learned since I had diabetes that carbohydrates break down into sugar. And since my diet was high in carbohydrates and proteins, I was in effect, having taking a lot of sugar that I just didn't understand at the time what caused diabetes. And he was the only other person that I know of in my family that had diabetes. So,
are there any types of medications that you have to take as a result of having diabetes?
yes, I take insulin. I'm what is considered an insulin dependent diabetic. I take a long acting insulin called Lantus, and then I take that the first thing in the morning, and then it's supposed to slowly release insulin during the day, and then I take a fast-acting insulin that I take with meals. I also take a tablet for diabetes. I also have high blood pressure, and I take medication for high blood pressure, but those are the only medications. I do take dietary, dietary supplements. I take CoQ10, which is used to supplement the enzymes that help your heart function, and then I take that's pretty much it. Blood pressure and CoQ10 for a healthy heart, because the blood vessels and tissue around the heart and the kidney are oftentimes affected by diabetes and the effects on of having high blood sugar levels.
Do you regularly have to go to doctor visits because of your diabetes?
No, I try to go a couple of times a year. Normally, I'm not having any kind of health issues, but the doctors like to check your, what they call A1C, your hemoglobin A1C, to see what type of issues you may be having with your blood sugar levels being consistently high. They like for your A1C to reflect a number that's between 6 and 7. And so I go and let them do my A1C a couple of times a year to make sure that I'm using enough medication to control it and to keep my sugar levels to a place where they're not damaging my eyes or my kidneys. And I usually go like in the middle of the year and at the end of the year. They take blood to test your blood sugar and to test your A1C, and that is controlled by eating. If you eat the right things and you exercise, then and your weight, which I need to probably do better with my weight, but I have injuries to my knees that keeps me from exercising as much as I should. I have an exercise bicycle that my son gave me, and I just need to use it more. And walking, I try to walk, but it's difficult walking because of my knees and my back. So no, and I'm not a sickly person, so I don't go to the doctor for every little thing. I just got my latest lab results back from the doctor. Normally people with diabetes also have high cholesterol levels, and I don't have that. I don't have issues with cholesterol. I don't take medication for cholesterol. I just take medication for blood pressure and diabetes. And doctors don't like to refill your prescriptions unless you come in and let them check you and do lab work to see how you're doing. That gives them an opportunity to adjust how much insulin you're taking, which pills that you need to take. But no, I don't go to the doctor that often.